Good afternoon, students. This is Professor Young. I hope everyone's doing well as we evolve into the fifth week of the course, or should I say in the courses. This video is done for all my econ courses. There's some similarities in terms of what I'm going to talk about for both macro and microeconomics courses. So first of all, I want to wish everyone good health and wellness and balance. For me, the COVID-19 phase 1 teaching modality has been very different. It's been difficult in some instances, but yet an opportunity to learn and grow as a teacher, shall I say, professor who teaches both face-to-face and online. So I want you to know that you're not alone, especially those of you that took a course initially. You don't have the opportunity to take a face-to-face course. I guess I digress, and I got lost in my thought process there, because even if you signed up for a class that was supposed to meet from 9:35 to 11, it's not possible during COVID-19. So, or should I say during this pandemic and this lockdown that we have. But at any rate, the visual, I want to talk about a couple of things today. Be real short. I'll continue to do the lecture videos, maybe starting next week. But I'm noticing that my students are not watching the videos, right? So I know in YouTube, I had about 5 students that watched last week's video, and I have 90 students in 4 courses. And so I'm not going to let that be the determinant factor on whether or not I make videos, because maybe some of you out there in the course don't need the professor's comments, because there are videos that are added for your benefit and your learning abilities. So this week, I'm not going to go into content, but this week I just want to talk a little bit about the grades. I do realize that I'm just a little bit behind on grades, and again, your patience is definitely a virtue. What you see in front of you is just one of my courses. Well, you'll notice I still have to grade some things. And if this is a situation for you, keep in mind that if there is something that you've done, it's going to have a 0 or it's going to be a blank space. And so I just wanted to show you from my perspective on my screen what it looks like when my students, when the grades haven't been calculated yet. So I just want to show you that to let you know that I realize that out there in the ecosystem of learning that you need to get these items back. Keep in mind, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we won't have discussion boards. So this will give me the opportunity to get these graded. Students can go back in and evaluate how they did. And then ultimately, when we start back on the discussion boards in week maybe 9 and 10, then you'll have a better basis for doing the last couple that we are required to do for the course. The next thing I want to talk just briefly about is the term project. Okay, of course, I sent out an announcement in this week's announcement indicating that you should print out the term project so that you can begin thinking about your research there. Keep in mind, I do realize I've been teaching here for 26 years, and a printout is probably not needed anymore. You could download the file to your devices, i.e. cell phone, tablet, computer, and actually begin working on your term project. I had a couple students that had indicated, where is the term project document in and of itself? So in most cases, in both macro and microeconomics classes in week 5, there is going to be a link to the term project. So what I would do to start my paper is I would first of all download it. And then after you've downloaded it, you can open the document up, literally. One of the things I found in my travels as a doctoral candidate and a master's student, bachelor student, I learned this later in my academic career, that the best way to start a project is to take the requirements page that your professor provides and open it up, take out all the information that is not necessary, and in essence, you can begin filling in your term project on the document that you have downloaded and opened in your system. So what I might encourage you to do, and I want to talk just a little bit about the resources and things that you will need. So in this case, this is my macroeconomics class, and the microecon is just different in terms of content. So the first thing I'm going to do is I recognize here that it says the research project would detail a particular country and one of the 5 geographical areas, and so most students have been approved in this regard. You will collect microeconomic data on the country and explicitly stating the economic system along with various macroeconomic measures and statistics as each relates to macroeconomic theory. Students will be required to diagram economic models. That's very important. A lot of students forget to include diagrams, charts, and/or tables in their paper. But the major problem is that students don't properly cite or develop their graphs using APA formatting, which is vitally important. And then you're going to be obviously extracting or using models that you've learned over the course of the semester. So especially for my microeconomic students, a lot of the things that we're going to do now in that class are going to be centered around the discussion of microecon and how corporations and firms are impacted by, moreover, how their decisions are derived given certain economic conditions and or data. You'll notice here on this document that I've given you some resources that I implore you to use. That is the VVC website, the Purdue OWL website for the APA, and also this elearners.com education resource. Keep in mind that students have to include 15 to 20 scholar sources related to the research topic, including articles, websites, and other literature sources. So keep in mind, you don't want to just use websites. You don't want to just use articles. You want to get in there and actually show me where some peer-reviewed literature is discussing your country and or corporation. And I'll show you how to do that. Remember, students, YouTube is profoundly expansive and educational. So anything that we're talking about here, especially with regards to APA 6th edition, all you have to do is go to YouTube if you haven't purchased the APA textbook. And that production possibility curves discussion, a lot of my students did not cite their work properly. And I think it's just because they felt, well, I can do it the way I want to do it. And I say that with all due respect. But APA is a specific formatting style, right? And you want to make sure not to use direct quotes. I can live with one direct quote, 2 direct quotes throughout the entire paper. But if you're doing direct quoting, that means that basically you're using someone else's words to support your research. And so that's going to impact the qualitative grade that you might earn. But again, direct quotes can easily be paraphrased, right? And so APA suggest that students paraphrase sentences. Keep in mind, when you're paraphrasing a sentence, what you're basically doing is reading something and then you're reteaching it in your own words. And people have said and used situations where you might say, well, isn't that the same thing as wordsmithing? Where you might look at this sentence here and it says scholar sources related to research topics, including articles, websites, and other sources. Well, to paraphrase that, a student might simply say, in order to achieve success on a term project, it is important to use scholar sources, articles, and other literature sources. So you'll notice I just added in a couple of things in terms of a noun, a verb, and then a complete thought with my sentence. But I rephrased that. I retaught that. So keep in mind that you do not want to have any more than 2 direct quotes in the entire paper. I want to force your hand there to make sure that you're thinking about what you're writing, that you're not just going out and cutting what someone else has said and imprinting that as your manuscript, your developed literature. Okay. Furthermore, of course, you're going to use 3 books, and I would use the textbook that you were using for the class as one of your books. I digress a bit. So as I mentioned, one of the things that you want to do now is come down here and you want to just basically cut all of this out. All right. Very important that you highlight that stuff in the yellow. Control C. And then I'm going to create a new document. And then I'm going to go Control V. All right. I can kind of spruce that up a bit. Let's see. Change the style there. Boom. Let's look at it in this light. Okay, that's the original context. So now basically I could say to myself, okay, I have 1 page of my term project. Okay, now of course you will notice within the modules section there's an APA document that I'm going to provide for you that sets up the margins and those types of things that are required for an APA document. Okay, but at this point now you can start to go in and find information regarding your country in this case, or if you're in the micro-econ class, regarding your corporation. So the other thing I want to mention is in order to find information out about your country, you can use several things. First and foremost, I'm going to go to the Victor Valley College website. I'm going to go into students, and then I'm going to go into library. Because the library has some expansive sources that some of you are going to find if you use Google Scholar, it's going to ask you to pay for the article. But again, you don't have to do that. There's a ways to get around that. In terms of all you have to really do is look at the abstract of the article or the introduction to really get an idea of what the article is talking about. But moreover, we have resources here that students can use. So first thing I want to show you, if you haven't seen this before, is that here's the APA manual. Now remember, this APA manual is not a complete document. Now let's say if I click on that, will it give me the entire booklet? Yes. Style guidance, reference examples, title page setup. Notice it tells you exactly how to set the page up, right? Reference examples. It gives you examples of what your reference is going to look like in terms of if you use a journal, a magazine, a book reference, which I would look at, of course, because there's 3. You have to do 3 books, and you'll notice that what the book reference looks like. So I want to really stress the point that the data is out here. Right, this is not a situation where I'm asking you students to write on APA 6th edition, but you don't have any information to go by, right? So that's one area that you can find your APA information. The other thing I want to show you here at this website is that, moreover, it also gives you research tips, right? Getting started. What do you do? Defining your topic. Writing down your topic, using keywords to find information, right? Also gives you some sources that you can possibly use. Okay, also talks about citing your sources. So now this information that you're going to be looking for, this is stuff that's going to take you some time. I mean, you have to set aside at least 4 hours per week to do research. Not 4 hours from start to finish, but at least 4 hours per week now. At 30-minute, I wouldn't even say 30 minutes. Anytime I did research for my projects, I would usually do some research for about an hour. Then I'd have to gather all my sources, then I have to read it. So in order to do well in this term project, you can't put it off until after Thanksgiving. You have to embody the project, holistically. Okay. Of course, when you take a look at some of the other items, I mean, of course, we have databases here that the college has also developed here in a group for you. So of course I might go into my business area and then of course You can find out information about different businesses within this EBSCOhost database, right? But there's something more in particular I want to show you here. Give me a moment. Let's go back. Research tools, internet, newspapers, information. We got that, we got that. I thought I had a specific economics search engine. Articles and databases, internet sources. Okay, so you can use obviously this website to get information for your paper. The other thing I want to show you about is Google Scholar. Google Scholar is something that I use all the time, right, to find what other authors, what other literaturists have said about a particular subject. So in this case, I have it on my I have the quick link on my Chrome browser, so I'm just going to go Spain unemployment, because if I'm in the macro econ course, I want to find something about Spain's unemployment. And I'm just going to give it a time frame, 2008 to 2020. Okay, and then it'll talk a little bit about, there's several things here that you can see. Of course, I want to open this up. And there you go, actors' aims and challenges for local planning in Spain, right? So I might take a look at that and see if there's anything that I might be able to extract for my term project in terms of unemployment. Generally, it goes a little bit faster than that. Let's go European perspective. Now, anytime you're doing Google Scholar, if it's a PDF, that means that you can look at it right away. I might go to this document. I'm going to look at it from the perspective of, is there anything in here that's discussing Spain? Now, of course, students might, invariably, they may say, okay, hey, I want to use this graphic, Professor Young. Remember, now, if you use this graphic, this is not the source information. The source information is going to be this article that you obtain this from. And then there's a specific way that the attributes that would have to go on top of that, like figure 1, and there's a certain way that you would do that. In this case, yeah, that is a figure, not a table. This is incorrect. Like the figure for APA should not be done at the top of the graph. It's at the bottom. Moreover, this figure number here has to be italicized. And you don't want this whole thing bolded either. So this is rule number 1. Don't follow what others have done in every case, because they may have done it out of the context of maybe APA. And peer-reviewed articles, they don't always catch everything that a professor might actually require that students use. Okay, so I don't want to be too long-winded. I just want to go and show you a couple of things on Google Scholar. Let's go back to the paper, and be mindful now that this paper is how long is it? 10 to 15 pages max. So not 8, not 7, not 9.5. But at minimum 10, and this is not including your references. Okay? If you use graphs, you want to make sure to use graphs intelligently, and with due diligence. You don't want to make 4 or 5 pages worth of graphs, because then that will also impact the qualitative validity of your paper. All right, so I hope this helps, and everyone stay safe and best success.